It's time to bloom. Too much. So the first week we pruned, then we chilled out and let God kind of do his thing that he does best, which is prevent us from getting our sticky hands all over it. And now it's time to bloom. Okay? So here's the verse. It's Romans 5:3-5. Not only so, but we also glory in our sufferings, because we know that suffering produces perseverance, character, and character, hope. And hope does not put us to shame, because God's love has been poured out into our hearts through the Holy Spirit, who has been given to us. What is more beautiful than a plant, a flower, a garden, a person in full bloom? It's not simply the beauty to our eye, but the beauty of what it represents. That person or thing is expressing in their fullness the way God created them to be. There's a happiness, a satisfaction, a contentedness that comes with being who we are, pruned perfectly by our loving Father and producing so much fruit, people can't help but stop and admire what they see. And I'm not talking about just looks here. That's why we get chills when someone hits that 3, or when someone is on stage and singing or performing or writing this beautiful piece or working and their business is flourishing. That kind of bloom is inspiring. But blooming doesn't just happen on its own. If God plants a seed, it has to be covered in dirt. It's often isolated for a prolonged amount of time, and to grow, the seed has to break open. Really fall apart. It's painful and lonely work. When the seed eventually sprouts and reaches the surface, it's not home free, okay, because now it's exposed to predators, storms, and droughts. And if it survives all that nonsense, it has to be pruned so far back, it's almost as if it loses all of its progress in one fell swoop. To bloom, we have to suffer. There's just no way around it. I don't know about you, but I really don't like suffering that much. Okay? In fact, I'll go through great lengths to avoid it. I will create other suffering in the future to prevent the suffering of right now, and then future me is real annoyed by that choice that I made. But the avoidance of suffering leads to a mediocre life. We don't take risks because we could lose, and we're terrified of losing. Hard work with no return isn't a pleasing proposition, so we do nothing, or the bare minimum, or just enough to keep immediate suffering at bay. Although most of us have a sneaking suspicion it simply prolongs greater suffering in the future. Am I right? We're not animals living off simple instincts. We have a spirit that knows there's more than instinctual living. That inner knowing is why we also suffer if our life is void of purpose or progress. Letting life pass us by while we go through the motions leads most of us to this common observation. There's got to be more to life than this. And there is. God intends for us to bloom. To become who God made us to be, we often have to endure isolation, darkness, and uncertainty. Then we reach a new level and have to endure predators set on bringing us down a peg or destroying our progress altogether. And then let's not forget the unexpected storm, releasing hail on us, chipping away at our new leaves and all of those budding new flowers. But if we want to bloom, we have to expect that it's part of the gig. If we spend our time avoiding the suffering that comes with growth, we miss out on all the gifts that comes with suffering. We delay what God has intended for us, the satisfaction and contentedness that comes with overcoming. It takes a lot of suffering to bloom. That's why it's so beautiful, it's so inspiring when we witness something bloom with our own eyes. And suffering, it isn't the end of us. It's a beautiful, worthy part of the journey. It's what makes us who we are. It's how we bloom.